You gave them everything. You were loyal, available, supportive, and completely transparent with your feelings. You did everything the movies told you to do, and in return, they lost respect for you, pulled away, and chose someone who treated them like an option. Society lied to you about how love works. Attraction is not built on endless kindness alone. It is shaped by perceived value, tension, and power dynamics. By making yourself constantly available, you flooded their ego and starved your own worth. So hear the truth you were never supposed to hear. If you want to never be discarded again, you must understand the dark mechanics of human desire. What hurt you was not just rejection, it was your own overexposure. Machiavelli understood something brutal about human nature. People obey immediate needs long before they honor long-term value. And in modern relationships, one of the strongest immediate needs is ego validation. That is why the forbidden question matters so much. What if the very reason they lost interest in you is because you proved how much you cared too early? What if your loyalty did not make you precious, but predictable? What if your constant reassurance did not deepen desire, but numbed it? This is where dark psychology becomes uncomfortable. Most people do not lose interest because they found someone better. They lose interest because certainty removed tension, and tension is part of desire. They felt no risk of losing you, no challenge, no mystery, no gap between wanting and getting. You gave them the emotional reward before they earned it, and their brain did what the brain always does with easy rewards. It adapted. It desensitized. It got bored. That is why this matters. This is not about becoming cruel. This is not about begging someone back with new tricks. This is about never feeding another person's ego so recklessly that they confuse your devotion with low value. You are about to learn a Machiavellian strategy for reclaiming your pace, your boundaries, and your status. You are about to understand intermittent reinforcement, reverse psychology, manipulation defense, and the power dynamics that make one person chase while the other decides. By the end, you will stop acting like the doormat they can step on whenever they feel lonely. You will become the vault they cannot casually open. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a "starve their ego" in the comments, so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. The first law is simple. Constant reassurance is the fastest way to kill human desire. You were taught that more love creates more love, more texts, more check-ins, more compliments, more availability, more emotional transparency. But the human brain does not treat unlimited access as precious. It treats it as normal. Then it starts hunting for stimulation somewhere else. This is not romance. This is neurology. When someone receives endless validation without effort, the reward loses intensity. The dopamine drops, the appetite wanders. What once felt flattering starts feeling expected. What once felt intimate starts feeling cheap. This is why so many good people get discarded. Not because they were unworthy, but because they made their worth too easy to consume. They poured attention so constantly that the other person never had to wonder, never had to reach, never had to risk. In power dynamics, certainty is comforting, but too much certainty kills tension, and when tension dies, desire often goes with it. Machiavelli would have recognized this immediately. He knew that what is fully possessed is often less valued than what remains partially out of reach. That is not poetry. That is Machiavellian strategy. It is the management of access. It is the discipline of not giving away your full emotional inventory on the first demand. It is the refusal to let someone enjoy the privileges of devotion while offering you only curiosity, inconsistency, or crumbs. They do not want a sure thing. They want a prize they have to bleed to win. That line sounds dark because it is. but it explains what your old behavior concealed from you. You were rewarding low effort with high intimacy. You were acting like commitment was already established when all you had was attention. You gave partner-level energy to people still deciding whether you were convenient. That is not love. That is premature surrender. In dark psychology, the person who controls the reward controls the rhythm. You surrendered the rhythm. You texted first when they went quiet. You explained yourself when they pulled back. You doubled your warmth when they became vague. You believed more effort would revive interest. In reality, more effort often confirms desperation, and desperation lowers perceived value faster than almost anything. Your availability is a direct metric of your desperation. That is why you must stop seeing constant access as virtue. In the wrong hands, it becomes self-erasure. You think you are proving sincerity. They experience no scarcity, no tension, no consequence for taking you for granted. The flood of validation becomes background noise. Then the same person who once said you were amazing suddenly needs space, becomes confused, or drifts towards someone colder. Not because coldness is moral, because easy certainty made you emotionally inexpensive. But understanding the flood is only the beginning. The deeper wound is what you're chasing revealed about you. Every time you chase someone who is pulling away, you pay a tax in status. You feel it when you send the second text. You feel it when you explain your intentions after they already showed indifference. You feel it when you refresh their social media, monitor their activity, or rewrite your message to sound less affected than you are. You are not just losing peace. You are broadcasting that their silence governs your nervous system, and once that happens, the power dynamics tilt hard against you. The person who is willing to walk away holds 100% of the power in the relationship. Most people hear that and think the lesson is to become heartless. It is not. The lesson is to become unbuyable, to become a person whose standards do not collapse under the pressure of attraction, to become someone who can feel deeply without begging to be chosen. That is real manipulation defense. Not playing colder games than they do, but refusing to reward mixed signals, disrespect, and emotional laziness with more access to you. Ask yourself the question you kept avoiding. Why were you so ready to overgive? Why did one delayed reply feel like an emergency? Why did ambiguity turn you into a performer? Why did you rush to prove your worth before they proved their character? Because you were not just seeking love. You were seeking relief. Relief from uncertainty, relief from rejection, relief from the fear that if you did not act now, you would lose them. And fear makes people volunteer for humiliations they would normally recognize. If you reward bad behavior with your attention, you are training them to abuse you. That is where dark psychology becomes useful. Not to dominate innocent people, but to see the trap clearly. The trap is not only their inconsistency, the trap is your hope that consistency from you will cure inconsistency from them. It will not. It teaches them that distance earns pursuit, vagueness earns reassurance, and disrespect earns more emotional labor from you. That is how your kindness gets turned against you. This is also where reverse psychology begins to matter. The more you visibly need the outcome, the less magnetic you become. The more you center your life around their approval, the less they respect the weight of your attention. Human beings are strange this way. They often chase what looks self-contained and neglect what looks self-abandoning. Not because everyone is evil, but because people instinctively value what appears to have a life beyond them. So the chase must end, not theatrically, not with threats, with internal finality. You stop volunteering proof. You stop persuading people to treat you well. You stop auditioning for a role you were worthy of before they entered the room. That does not make you cold. It makes you expensive. But walking away emotionally is not the same as disappearing recklessly. There is a smarter move, a colder one, a more disciplined one. Machiavelli understood that the human brain becomes addicted to unpredictability. Modern psychology gave that mechanism a name: intermittent reinforcement. It is the same pattern that keeps people pulling slot machines, checking phones, reopening messages, and obsessing over uncertain rewards. A reward given constantly becomes expected. A reward given unpredictably becomes psychologically gripping. That is why unstable attention can hook people so hard, and that is why your constant reassurance made you easy to overlook. You removed uncertainty so completely that their brain stopped reaching. Obsession is not born in your presence. It is born in the anxiety of your absence. Now hear this carefully. This principle explains desire, but it can also become poison. Used recklessly, intermittent reinforcement is emotional manipulation. Used wisely, it becomes manipulation defense. The point is not to trap people. The point is to stop feeding them constant ego fuel while you receive unstable energy in return. The point is to stop making your affection automatic. The point is to return your attention to a place where it is responsive to effort, not handed out on command. That is the difference between strategy and self-betrayal. You are probably making this fatal error on your social media right now. Stop doing it immediately. Stop posting with them in mind. Stop liking quickly to stay visible. Stop leaving little digital breadcrumbs to remind them you still care. Stop showing your emotional pulse for free. Every unnecessary signal teaches them the same lesson. Access to your mind remains open, even when access to their respect remains closed. Machiavellian strategy in relationships begins with one brutal shift. You become reliable in character, but selective with access. You do not become chaotic. You become measured. You do not ghost to create panic. You simply stop over-functioning. You stop rescuing dead momentum. You stop forcing conversation to stay alive when the other person is offering half effort. You let space reveal truth. There is a simple formula here: warmth, limit, exit. Not a paragraph, not an emotional essay, not a courtroom defense of your intentions. Warmth so you remain composed. Limit so they feel that your time is structured. Exit so the conversation does not turn into another open buffet of your attention. That is reverse psychology at its cleanest. The less you force connection, the more the other person must decide whether they are willing to move towards you without being carried. But withholding attention can backfire if you do not understand one critical caveat. If your absence is theatrical, bitter, jealous, or obviously manipulative, the frame collapses. Desperation wearing a mask is still desperation. The point is not to act absent. The point is to actually have a life, a standard, and a center that does not orbit somebody else's mood. When that becomes real, the power dynamic starts to reverse. Strategic absence is not punishment. It is the removal of unearned access. That sentence separates self-command from cheap games. A needy person disappears to provoke panic. A disciplined person becomes less available because their attention is no longer free. The outer behavior can look similar. The inner energy is completely different, and people feel the difference immediately. When you implement this stage, they will test you. They will send a low-effort message after hours of silence. They will drop a breadcrumb. They will view your story. They will use vague curiosity to check whether you still care. They may even create minor jealousy to see whether they still control your emotional weather. If you show jealousy, the entire strategy collapses. The frame shatters. You confirm that they still own the center of your mind. So what do you do instead? You respond only to clarity. You reward only real effort. You give your energy where it is matched. That is manipulation defense. That is dark psychology turned inward as discipline. You are no longer asking, how do I make them choose me? You are asking, have they earned continued access to me at all? This is where most people fail because they confuse delayed response with power. Delay alone is childish. Strategic absence is larger than timing. It is a total shift in your emotional economy. Your phone is no longer an altar. Your day is no longer organized around one person's validation. Your silence is not a stunt. It is evidence that your life is full enough to continue whether they text or not. The person who is willing to walk away holds 100% of the power in the relationship. Again, not because walking away is magic, but because willingness to walk away proves you are not negotiating from hunger. Hunger is readable. Hunger makes you over-explain, over-give, and overstay. Calm standards do the opposite. They make you lighter, quieter, and harder to misuse. In power dynamics, that shift is enormous. The other person begins to sense that attention from you is no longer guaranteed. Their ego, once overfed, now meets a locked gate, and a locked gate creates movement. That is the paradox nice people never learn until pain teaches it. The more you throw yourself at someone, the less they feel your value. The more you protect your pace, the more your presence acquires gravity. Not because scarcity is a trick, but because unguarded abundance makes almost anything feel common. Machiavelli knew that people often desire what resists easy possession. You were taught that instant emotional access proves purity. But Machiavelli would tell you that unrestricted access without earned trust creates contempt in weak characters and complacency in immature ones. So stop confusing total exposure with intimacy. Real intimacy is gradual, it is reciprocal, it is built, not dumped. You are not withholding love, you are withdrawing subsidy. And once you stop subsidizing someone else's ego, the next phase begins. They start feeling the loss of easy certainty. They start wondering. They start checking. They start leaning. Not because you cast a spell, but because your energy is no longer lying on the floor for casual use. Here is the final discipline. Be the vault they cannot open, not the doormat they walk across. A vault does not shake when someone knocks. A vault does not open because the right person applies pressure. A vault opens by design, by standard, by code. That is your model now. You do not chase after withdrawal. You do not reward vagueness. You do not pour reassurance into people who have already shown you they become careless when fed too easily. When they finally notice the difference, they may accuse you of being cold. They may say you changed. They may suddenly rediscover their interest once your attention is no longer guaranteed. This is where many people ruin everything by becoming smug or vindictive. Do not do that. Coldness without control is just another form of emotional leakage. Stay measured, stay brief, stay calm. Let your actions communicate what your old over-explaining never could. There is a specific shift you will feel in stage 6. The power dynamic will reverse, and you will feel them start to chase you. Their timing changes. Their curiosity sharpens. Their energy becomes more watchful. They begin to seek reassurance where they once expected it automatically. But do not be hypnotized by the reversal. It is only useful if it reveals character. If they chase only when access is threatened, that tells you something. If they become respectful, clear, and consistent, that tells you something else. Your job is no longer to be chosen. Your job is to observe. That is the final secret. The real power was never in making someone obsessed. The real power is in becoming so centered that obsession is no longer your goal. What people call obsession is often just an ego reacting to scarcity. Let that reaction reveal the truth. Do not build your future on someone's panic. Build it on their consistency. Still, understand this. The person who once ignored you may become preoccupied the moment your attention is no longer cheap. That is not magic. That is reverse psychology colliding with ego hunger. They were comfortable when your care was automatic. Now they have to wonder whether the supply is gone. The same brain that ignored unlimited validation becomes alert when validation is removed. This is intermittent reinforcement as a description of human weakness, not a toy for your cruelty. Use that knowledge with precision. Use it to protect your dignity. Use it to stop over-investing. Use it to detect who values you only when they can lose you. Use it to understand why overchasing destroyed your position. This is dark psychology, but its highest form is self-command. This is Machiavelli, but the deepest lesson is not domination. It is selective access. It is the discipline to keep your warmth under your own authority. So stop texting to soothe your anxiety. Stop explaining your loyalty to people benefiting from your confusion. Stop treating your emotional availability like proof of virtue. It is not. In the wrong relationship, it is an invitation to be taken for granted. Your old self believed love meant constant proof. Your stronger self knows that value grows when access is earned, not assumed. You began this as the desperate chaser, the overly available romantic, the one who believed flawless communication and endless loyalty would protect you from being discarded. Now you understand the harsher truth. They lost interest not because you cared, but because you made your care costless. You flooded their ego, then wondered why they became numb. You fed attention into a structure that rewarded your devotion with indifference. That ends here. Now you become the mysterious prize, not by acting superior, but by becoming harder to access, harder to predict, and impossible to cheapen. You stop feeding unstable people constant reassurance. You stop collapsing your standards to keep a connection alive. You stop over-explaining your heart to people who have not earned its full language. You become selective, structured, and unreadable enough that anyone who wants your depth must first prove they can handle your distance. Be the vault they cannot open, not the doormat they walk across. Type "starve their ego" in the comments if you are done overfeeding other people's vanity and ready to put your attention back under your control. Subscribe if you are done confusing love with self-abandonment. This space is for people who are finished begging for breadcrumbs, finished rewarding mixed signals, and finished letting weak characters dictate their emotional weather. This is where Machiavelli meets manipulation defense, where dark psychology becomes inner discipline, where power dynamics stop being something that happens to you and become something you finally understand. Stand with the few who know that attention is not to be spilled. It is to be directed, to understand the exact words to use when they finally confront your coldness. Click the video on screen. See what others miss. Know what others fear. Become who others can't.